Mama Adana woke before the cock crowed. Her bones creaked like old wood, but her spirit rose with the dawn. She wrapped her faded wrapper around her waist and stepped outside into the cool morning air. The compound was silent except for the whisper of wind through the plantain leaves. She bent low, gathering firewood from the small pile by the kitchen. Her fingers, gnarled and rough from decades of work, moved with practiced ease. Soon, smoke curled up from the 3 stones that held her blackened pot. The smell of boiling yam filled the air. This was her life now. Alone. Once this compound had been full of noise. Her 3 sons, Chike, Emika, and Obina, had filled every corner with their laughter and their mischief. She remembered the morning they fought over who would fetch water first, how they raced to the stream with their jerry cans bouncing on their heads. Those days felt like dreams now. Sweet dreams that hurt when you woke up. Mama, a voice called from the path. It was Ngozi, her neighbor's daughter, carrying a basket of tomatoes on her head. My daughter, Mama Adana replied, smiling warmly despite the loneliness that pressed against her chest. I brought you some tomatoes from our farm, Ngozi said, lowering the basket. You should not be cooking alone every day. Come eat with us. Mama Adana shook her head gently. Thank you, my child, but I'm fine. God is with me. Ngozi looked at the old woman with pity in her eyes. Everyone in the village knew the story. 3 sons who had gone to the city and forgotten the mother who raised them. 3 sons who now drove big cars and lived in houses with gates, while their mothers still fetched water from the stream. Have you heard from them? Ngozi asked softly. The old woman's smile faltered for just a moment. No, my daughter, but I pray for them every day. They are busy building their lives. One day, they will remember. Ngozi wanted to say that if they truly loved their mother, they would not need to remember. They would never forget. But she kept silent. Some truths were too painful to speak aloud. After Ngozi left, Mama Adana sat on her wooden stool and looked at the rising sun. She thought of her sons as boys, how Chike would bring her wildflowers from the bush, how Emika would sing her songs while she cooked, how little Obina would fall asleep in her arms every night. Where had those boys gone? She wiped a tear with the edge of her wrapper and stood up. There was work to do. The cassava needed harvesting, the compound needed sweeping, and life did not stop just because a heart was breaking. In the city, far from the red dust and the morning smoke, Chike sat in his air-conditioned office on the 15th floor. His phone rang constantly, business deals, investors, meetings. He was a successful man now. Everyone called him Chief Chike, and he liked the sound of it. His secretary knocked gently. Sir, your appointment is here. Let them wait, he said without looking up from his laptop. On the other side of the city, Emika stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his gold watch. His girlfriend lay on the bed behind him, scrolling through her phone. Baby, let's go to Dubai next week, she said lazily. Again, Emika laughed. We just came back from London. So, you have the money, don't you? He did. Money was no longer a problem. He remembered when 20 naira was too much to ask for. Now, he spent thousands without blinking. Obina, the youngest, was at a club even though it was only afternoon. Music pounded through the speakers as he poured champagne for his friends. They toasted to success, to wealth, to the good life. My guy, you don hammer, one of his friends shouted over the music. Obina grinned. We move, brother. We move. None of them thought about the village. None of them thought about the small mud house with the leaking roof. And none of them thought about the woman who had sold her last wrapper to pay their school fees. Out of sight, out of mind. Every December, when the Harmattan wind brought dust from the north, Mama Adana would clean the compound extra carefully. She would sweep every corner, wash the windows, and arrange the few chairs she had in a neat row. They will come for Christmas, she would tell herself. This year they will come. She would cook their favorite meals, jollof rice with plenty of meat, fried plantain, and her special pepper soup that they used to fight over as children. The food would sit there, growing cold, while she waited by the roadside. Evening would come, then night, then morning again. They never came. The neighbors watched with heavy hearts. Some women brought her food, so she would not eat alone. Others sat with her in silence, because sometimes presence speaks louder than words. Mama, please eat, they would beg. Don't let the food waste. But she would shake her head. Let me wait a little longer. Maybe they're caught in traffic. There was no traffic between the city and the village that could last for days. Everyone knew this. But hope is a stubborn thing, especially in a mother's heart. One Christmas Eve, after 3 years of waiting, something inside Mama Adana finally cracked. She sat on her stool in the dark compound, the cold food still on the table, and she wept. Not the quiet tears she cried in private, but loud, heavy sobs that shook her entire body. God, she cried out to the empty night. What did I do wrong? Did I not love them enough? Did I not pray hard enough? Why have my children forgotten me? The darkness had no answer. But in that moment of deepest pain, something else was born. Not bitterness. Mama Adana's heart was too pure for that. Instead, it was acceptance. The painful acceptance that her sons had chosen their new lives over her. She wiped her tears, stood up slowly, and packed away the food. She would give it to the widow next door whose children were hungry. From now on, she whispered to herself, I will live for today, not for tomorrow's visits that never come. Years passed. Chaik bought his third house. Emeka opened another business. Obina got married to a beautiful woman whose bride price could have fed their village for a year. At Obina's wedding, someone asked, Where is your mother? Why is she not here? Obina's face went stiff. She's in the village. She doesn't like city life. It was a lie. He had never even invited her. He was ashamed of her simple ways, her village accent, the way she would embarrass him in front of his sophisticated friends. His brothers were no better. When people asked about their family, they spoke vaguely, changing the subject quickly. They posted pictures of their success on social media, but never mentioned the woman who had made it all possible. One day, Chaik's business partner said to him, You know, the greatest wealth a man has is family. My mother is my biggest supporter. Chaik forced a smile. That's good. But inside, something stirred. A memory of his mother singing while she pounded yam. The way she would save the best pieces of meat for him and his brothers, eating only the bones herself. How she would wake up at 3 a.m. to prepare them for school, her eyes heavy with sleep, but her hands never stopping. He pushed the memory away. He was too busy for sentimentality. But memories don't die easily. They wait in the shadows, growing stronger with time. It started with a cough. A small thing that Mama Adana ignored. She had survived worse. Malaria that nearly killed her when the boys were young, the hungry years when the rains failed, the loneliness that tried to consume her from inside. But this cough did not go away. It grew deeper, harder, until she could barely sleep at night. Ngozi found her one morning collapsed by the well, the bucket still in her hand. Mama, Mama. Ngozi screamed, running to her. The village gathered quickly. They carried her to the small clinic where Brother John, the village health worker, did what he could with his limited supplies. She needs to go to the hospital in town, he said gravely. This is beyond me. Who will pay? Someone asked. Silence fell like a heavy cloth. Her sons, another voice said. Someone should call her sons. But no one had their numbers. Mama Adana had never owned a phone. She had no way to reach them, and they had no way to reach her, or perhaps no desire to. We will contribute, the women decided. They went from house to house, collecting what little money they could. 50 naira here, 100 there. By evening, they had gathered enough for transport and maybe one night at the hospital. They took Mama Adana to town in a bus, holding her gently as she coughed and shivered. At the hospital, the doctor examined her and shook his head. This is serious. She needs proper treatment, tests, medication. It will cost money. How much? Ngozi asked. When he told them the amount, their hearts sank. It was more than the entire village could gather in a month. Please, Ngozi begged. She has 3 sons in the city. They are rich men. If we could just contact them. Then contact them, the doctor said simply. We will keep her for tonight, but if no one pays by tomorrow, I cannot do more than give her pain medicine. That night, Ngozi sat beside Mama Adana's bed in the crowded ward. The old woman drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes calling out the names of her sons. Chaik, Emeka, Obina, where are you? Each name was a knife in Ngozi's heart. Ngozi was determined. The next morning, she went to the village head. Sir, we must find Mama Adana's sons. Please, you know people in the city. Can you help? The chief nodded slowly. I will try. Through a network of village connections, a nephew who worked as a driver, a cousin who was a security guard at a big company, they finally found them. First, they reached Chaik's office. The receptionist answered the phone with a bright, professional voice. Good afternoon, Chief Chaik's office. How may I help you? Please, I need to speak to him. It's about his mother. She is very sick. There was a pause. What is your name? I'm calling from his village. His mother is in the hospital, and... Please hold. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, Chief Chaik is in a meeting. Please send an email. But his mother... The line went dead. Ngozi tried again. And again. Each time, a different excuse. He was busy. He was traveling. He was not available. She tried Emeka next. His phone went straight to voicemail. The message was smooth and confident. You've reached Emeka. I'm probably making money right now. Leave a message. She left 3 messages. He never called back. Obina's number was wrong. It had been changed. No one knew the new one. Ngozi sat in the hospital corridor and cried. Not gentle tears, but the angry, frustrated tears of someone watching injustice happen and being powerless to stop it. An old man sitting nearby spoke softly. My daughter, why do you cry? She told him everything. When she finished, he shook his head sadly. This world, he said, has taught our children to chase money and forget love. But money is like water in a basket. It flows away. Love is like a tree. It remains. Those boys will learn this lesson, but I fear it will be too late. That night, as Mama Adana lay struggling to breathe, something unexpected happened. A woman walked into the ward. A stranger, well-dressed and kind-faced. Are you with Mama Adana? She asked Ngozi. Yes, Ma. Who are you? The woman smiled gently. My name is not important, but I know her story. I heard about it from someone in your village who is related to my driver. She placed an envelope on the table. This should cover all her medical expenses and more. Please make sure she gets the best treatment. Ngozi opened the envelope and gasped. More money than she had ever seen. Ma, but why? How? The woman's eyes were sad. Because I too had a mother once. And I learned too late how precious she was. I cannot bring my mother back, but maybe I can help someone else's mother survive. Tell her that not all children forget. Some of us remember. We just remember too late. Before Ngozi could say more, the woman was gone, disappearing into the night like an angel who had delivered her message. With the money, Mama Adana received the best care. The doctors worked diligently, and slowly, so slowly, she began to recover. It took weeks, but eventually, the color returned to her cheeks and the light returned to her eyes. Thank you, my daughter, she whispered to Ngozi. But who pay? A stranger, Mama. An angel sent by God. Mama Adana smiled weakly. God is good. Even when my own children forget me, He does not. In the city, the brothers' lives began to unravel. It started with Chaik. A business deal went wrong. Money he had invested, millions, disappeared overnight. His partners had betrayed him, taking everything and leaving him with nothing but debt. His cars were seized. His houses taken. Within 3 months, the mighty Chief Chaik was sleeping on a friend's couch, making frantic phone calls to people who suddenly did not recognize his number. Emeka was next. His girlfriend, the one he had spent fortunes on, ran away with another man, a richer man. But worse than that, the government came knocking. Tax evasion, they said. Fraud. They froze all his accounts and charged him to court. But I didn't know, he protested. My accountant. You signed the documents, they replied coldly. He too lost everything. Obina's fall was the most dramatic. His beautiful wife, it turned out, had married him only for money. When a money problem started, when his business began failing, she left in the middle of the night, taking jewelry, electronics, and even some of his clothes. He came home one day to an empty house. Just a note on the table. You're not the man I married. Goodbye. Within a year, all 3 brothers had fallen from grace. The friends disappeared. The praise singers went silent. The respect evaporated like morning dew under the afternoon sun. They found themselves together one evening, sitting in Chike's small rented room, all that was left of his empire. No lights, because he couldn't pay the electricity bill. No food, because there was no money. They sat in darkness and in silence. Finally, Obina spoke, his voice breaking. God is punishing us. Don't be foolish, Chike said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's true, Emika whispered. We abandoned Mama. We left her to suffer alone while we enjoyed ourselves. Now, God has humbled us. Chike wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Deep in his heart, he knew they were right. He thought of all the times he had ignored calls from the village. The times he had driven past the road that led home without even slowing down. The Christmases he had spent in hotels and clubs while his mother waited by the roadside. What have we done? He said, his voice barely audible. The three brothers wept. Not the light tears of temporary sadness, but the deep, wrenching sobs of true regret. They cried for their mother. They cried for their lost selves. They cried for the time they could never get back. The next morning, they made a decision. They would go home, not with cars and bodyguards, not with money and gifts. They would go as they were, broken, humbled, ashamed. They borrowed money for transport. They wore their only remaining clothes, simple, faded, nothing like the designer outfits they once flaunted. They looked like what they had become, ordinary men who had learned an extraordinary lesson. The journey back to the village felt longer than any trip they had ever taken. Every mile brought more memories. The stream where they used to swim. The mango tree they climbed as boys. The path their mother walked every day to the farm. When they finally reached the village, people stared. Word spread quickly. Mama Adana's sons have returned. But there was no celebration in the whispers. Only judgment. Look at them now. Not so proud anymore. God does not sleep. They came back only because they lost everything. The brothers kept their heads down, shame weighing heavier than any load they had ever carried. They reached their mother's compound. The house looked even smaller than they remembered, even more worn. But the compound was swept clean, and smoke rose from the kitchen. Mama Adana was sitting on her stool, peeling cassava. She had heard they were coming. News traveled fast in the village. Her hands trembled as she worked, but she did not stop. When they entered the compound and saw her, they fell to their knees. All three of them, their faces pressed to the red dust. Mama, Chike's voice broke. Mama, we are sorry. She did not move. She did not speak. She just kept peeling cassava, her eyes fixed on her work. Mama, please, Emika begged. We know we don't deserve your forgiveness. We abandoned you. We forgot all you did for us. We chose pride and money over you. We are not worthy to be called your sons. Still, she said nothing. Obina sobbed loudly. Mama, if you curse us, we will accept it. We have sinned against heaven and against you. We do not ask for your love. We only ask that you do not die with anger in your heart toward us. The silence stretched on. Neighbors gathered at a respectful distance, watching. Finally, Mama Adana spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. Stand up. They looked up at her, tears streaming down their faces. Stand up, she repeated. They stood, trembling like children caught in wrongdoing. Mama Adana set down her knife and cassava. She stood slowly, her body still weak from the illness. She walked toward them, step by step, until she stood before her three sons. And then she did something they did not expect. She opened her arms. Come, she whispered. They collapsed into her embrace. All three grown men, crying like babies against their mother's shoulder. She held them, her own tears finally falling. I forgive you, she said softly. I forgave you long ago. Because that is what mothers do. We love even when it hurts. We forgive even when we are broken. We wait even when hope is dying. The neighbors wiped their eyes. Some turned away, two moved to watch. But Mama Adana continued, pulling back to look at each of her sons. You must learn. Wealth that makes you forget your roots is not wealth. It is a curse. Success that makes you ashamed of your family is not success. It is failure dressed in fine clothes. Yes, Mama, they said in unison, like children receiving instruction. Money will come and go, she continued. But family remains. Love remains. The values I taught you, those should have remained too. Promise me, my sons, that you will never forget again. "We promise, Mama," Chaik said, his voice firm despite his tears. "We will never forget." The brothers did not return to the city immediately. They stayed in the village, sleeping in their old room, eating their mother's simple food, working on the farm alongside her. Chaik, who once commanded workers with a snap of his fingers, now learned to bend his back in the cassava field. Emika, who had spent thousands on single meals, now appreciated the taste of roasted yam and palm oil. Obina, who had been too proud to be seen in the village, now greeted every elder with respect. They rebuilt their mother's house, with their own hands this time, not hired labor. They fixed the roof, plastered the walls, and built a new kitchen. Not a mansion, but a strong, clean home worthy of the woman who had sacrificed everything for them. The village watched their transformation with cautious hope. Change is easy to claim, but hard to prove. Time would tell if the brothers had truly learned their lesson. One evening, as they sat together eating dinner, Mama Adana asked them a question. "My sons, what did you learn from your fall?" Chaik spoke first. "I learned that pride comes before destruction. I was so busy being important that I forgot to be human." Emika nodded. "I learned that not everyone who smiles with you in good times will cry with you in bad times. True family is not found. It is born and nurtured." Obina, the youngest, said softly, "I learned that success without character is just noise, and that the most valuable thing I had was never money. It was you, Mama." Mama Adana smiled, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Then you have learned what money could never teach you, and that is worth more than all the gold in the world." Slowly, with humility and hard work, the brothers began to rebuild their lives. But this time it was different. This time they did it right. Chaik started a small business in the village. Nothing fancy, just honest trade. He involved the community, creating jobs for young people who might otherwise leave for the city and forget their roots like he had done. Emika used his business knowledge to help local farmers get better prices for their crops. He connected them with city markets, but he always came home to the village at the end of each week. Obina opened a small school where children could learn without paying fees that their parents could not afford. He remembered how his mother had struggled to pay for his education, and he was determined that no child should be left behind because of poverty. And every Sunday, the three brothers sat with their mother in church, grateful for the second chance they had been given. Word of their transformation spread. Other successful people who had forgotten their families heard the story and felt convicted. Some returned to make things right. Others ignored the message and continued in their pride. But Mama Adana became a symbol in the region. The mother who never gave up, who forgave the unforgivable, and whose love proved stronger than rejection. People came from far and wide to hear her story, and she would tell it simply, without bitterness. "My sons forgot me for a time, but God did not forget any of us. He humbled them to save them. He saved them to restore us. And now we are whole again, not because we are perfect, but because we chose forgiveness over anger and love over pride." 10 years passed. Mama Adana had grown much older now, her hair completely white, her steps slower. But she was not alone. Her compound was always full, grandchildren playing, daughters-in-law cooking, sons working nearby where they could check on her throughout the day. One evening, as the sun set orange and gold over the village, she sat on her familiar stool with all three sons beside her. "Mama," Chaik said, "we have a surprise for you." She smiled. "At my age, every day I wake up is a surprise." They laughed. Then Emika brought out a small photo album. "We gathered pictures from when we were children. We want to remember everything, the good and the hard times, so we never forget again." As they flipped through the pages, images of a younger Mama Adana with three small boys, pictures of the old mud house, photos of school ceremonies and farm work. The memories came flooding back. "Look how small you were," Mama Adana said, touching a picture of little Obina. "And so troublesome." "We learn from the best," Obina teased gently. She swatted at him playfully, and they all laughed. As darkness fell and the grandchildren were called inside for bed, Mama Adana looked at her three sons. No longer boys, no longer proud city men, but humble, grateful men who had learned life's most important lesson. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. Not because of what you have achieved, but because of what you have become. Trike took her hand. And we are grateful to you, Mama, for never giving up on us, for forgiving us when we did not deserve it. That is what love does, she replied. It does not give up. It does not keep a record of wrongs. It hopes. It endures. It remains. The three brothers nodded, each making a silent vow that they would carry this lesson forward, to their children, to their community, to everyone who would listen. And in that small village, under the vast African sky, filled with stars, a family that had been broken was made whole again. Not because they were perfect, but because they chose love over pride, forgiveness over bitterness, and humility over the illusion of success. Mama Adana closed her eyes and smiled. Her journey had been long and painful, but in the end, her children had come home, and that was all a mother's heart could ask for.